So just gonna let it go for a few minutes just in case it cuts off the beginning of the video. I can't be too sure that this works yet. That was the sound of a dog. We've got confirmation it's working. Hey, I'm Ben, I work at Boldport, and I'm going to show you today how to assemble the next project, which will be being released this month in April, probably next week if you just look at the date of this video. What you'll be receiving is this kit. I just switch to the other view. It comes in a box. You get in this nice packaging. You get a circuit board, lots of this, and the kit, and a nice sticker. Zoom in on that. Stick this wherever you like. So the main point in this video, later on I'll be showing more in-depth detail about how the circuit works. Probably in a couple of days, be a live stream, and yeah, at the point of this video I'll just be show you how to assemble it if you get a bit stuck. So let me just go back to this and we'll run through it. So actually, let me just say, the first thing you might notice is I don't have any kind of extractor fan. That's because it's just too noisy, but we have just here a little fan to blow across the work surface to get to let all the smoke blow that way, away from my face. Now, this is the kit you're going to get. Contains all the parts. You get 12 resistors, 1 photo transistor, tiny little speaker, tiny speaker, 2 pieces of blank wire, boring, a diode, standard signal diode, tiny chip. It's a 6 Schmidt inverters, battery holder, tiny switch, so small I can't focus on it. Well, look, we can use the new microscope view. There's the tiny switch. See, it says on. An electrolytic capacitor. See, it's black stripe, and the rest is just these little yellow things. Go to the main camera. These are multi-layer ceramic capacitors, or ceramic capacitors. Okay, so let's look at the board. This is the board. On one side you can see it's mainly just silkscreen. There's a few pads at the bottom here, and there's an eye, and this is where the antenna goes, and these are the 2 legs. If you flip it over, you can see there's all the other components are mainly on this side. Trying to keep them mostly on this side to make sure this side looks nice and clean. to pull this thing apart, you can just snap them off. Let's say. You see that? Be careful; they can be quite sharp. But we don't need these yet. We'll just put those aside. This is what we need. And you see, the tabs will be left over. All we have to do is just cut those off. Pair of pliers. And ideally, after that, you could sand them down with a file or some sandpaper. But we won't do that for now because we need to do some soldering. Now, there's a specific way that this should be done, really, because things get in the way. Ideally, you should start first with the integrated circuit. I'll show you the microscope. That's this here. That's the footprint for the integrated circuit, and the switch, which is here. And then we will move on to doing the capacitors, which are these pads, and these pads here. Everything is sort of surface mounted, even if they are through-hole parts. This is where the speaker goes. Let's start by putting in integrated circuit. Comes in a tiny little packet like this, and you just need to carefully peel it back. Make sure there's not too much static. By grounding yourself or similar. See the chip. Now I don't know if you can see. Let's change the exposure. No. Let's make it a bit bigger. It's really not that clear. Maybe an angle. Not very clear. It looks like it's totally black, but it's not. I know what would be better if I hold it in my hand up to the camera. You see here, there. Not going to happen. There's a stripe in the markings on it. That means pin 1 is here. That means that where the stripe is, it has to go at this end. So like so. It's very faint, but you can see the line is here and the number 1 is there. Now to solder it, what we do, just put a little tab on one of the corner pins. I'll do it where the number 1 is. Oops. Went over a bit. See, I put a little tab of solder there. I accidentally went on that one too. What I'll do is look close. What I'll do is place it on and melt it down like that. Oops. So much more difficult in the camera. There we go. See how I've made sure it's all straightened up. All the pins. Ah, you can see the line there really well. See how the line is where number 1 is. Beautiful. And then we'll just use little tabs of solder just to melt the rest of the pins onto the It's a lot easier when you're not doing this in the camera. This is the hardest bit. Get the hard bit out of the way first. There we go. If you drag the tip away down the line, make sure that you don't get any joins. If you make any mistakes and you put too much solder on, you can use solder wick to remove some solder, etc. And now we'll also do the switch, just because it's the second hardest thing to do. Same goes for this. Just tab tiny bit solder on one pad, and it doesn't really matter which way the switch goes up, but there is an on, and I put the on upwards. I'm just holding this with my fingers, melting it on the tab. Oh man. So much harder in the camera. Secretly I'm terrible at soldering. My secret's out. Sorry for going off camera a bit. There we go. Now we have the chip and the switch in. Next, we'll move on to doing the capacitors. That's because the capacitors are probably the second next hardest thing to do. See here. There will be a better guide on what the values are, but for this video I'll just be using the schematic. So you see there's a CMOD capacitor, that's 1 microfarad. That is ceramic. That is here. Because if you see there, it's labelled 105. So that's 1,0,0,0,0,0, which is in picofarads. So 105 is 1 microfarad. That is on the place of C mod. C mod can be found on the board. There's the middle one. Now what we'll do is we'll cut those legs down so they'll fit like that. See how they're too long at the moment? So they will fit like so. To do that, we just do the similar method of doing one pad, then tabbing it in place. Use a thicker solder. And then we have C carrier. That on the schematic is here. That's 10N. That is denoted by 103. We do the exact same for that. Okay, and the next one, it's a bit wonky, you can be more careful and you've got time to do this yourself. The next one is C gate, which in the schematic is here. It's 47 microfarad. That is the electrolytic capacitor, this one. See, it says 47 microfarads, and that line means negative. It's also denoted by the short leg. We have to cut that in the same way. And if you look on the board, I've actually got a plus on one side of the capacitor. It doesn't matter on these, you can put them any way round, but on this, the plus has to be the side without the negative stripe. To get them to contact with the bed, you can just use the edge of something. Just push it down. Like that. Right. Now what? We've got two more capacitors. These are 100 nanofarad capacitors. In the schematic, they are here. One is for decoupling the power supply for the logic chip. The other one is for decoupling the removing the DC from the speaker. It helps reduce the drive out from the chip. Basically makes the speaker work. They have to be cut exactly the same way. They're labelled C2 and C1. I'll show you on the board. C2 is near this circle. C1 is there. I'll do C1. Be careful not to melt the chip, the switch, because it's plastic. See, I've done one tab. I almost melted the plastic. Never use a microscope in solder. Then we'll do this one. Done this one a bit long. Just shift it a bit. I recommend doing it at the height where that circle is. But for now, I'm just going to do this because we've got to get through. Now, one last component like this is this, the diode. If you see, the diode has a black line at one end and not on the other. The black line goes at the same place as this line. Like that. We just have to cut the ends to match. Well, just cut one end so it's easier to solder. Tab the top pad. Join it in. Then cut off the pad there. Solder that in. Ooh, this is a bit wonky. You can just push it down like that. This could have been done better, but it still works. Let me show you on the other camera. Right, see, everything's done. All that's left now, the battery holder, the connecting wire, and the speaker and the legs. There's 2 legs. Well, first we'll do the connecting wire here on R5. The reason this is here is if you want to run this at a different voltage or other things like that, this lets you limit the current going through the speaker, so it doesn't burn the speaker out or overload the outputs of the chip. But for this, for using the project with the battery, you don't have to worry, it's just the link. You can either use a piece of the end of one of these wires, or I just like to use one of the off-cut legs. For that, we just tab one side. Stick in the wire, solder in the wire, careful not to burn your hands. Cut the end, push it down to make sure it's going to connect, solder the other. There. Next I will do the battery holder. That's what this huge pad here is for. Let me show you on the wider one. Zoom in. So for this, generally it's a good idea to get a bit of solder on this to make it nice textured so the battery makes good contact with that. I normally just do, maybe I'll do some max shape. I normally just blob a bit of solder on. Doesn't have to be too much, and just like run it around. You can leave a little blob in the middle. Now the battery holder connected there and there. We just need to, it might have been better to put the battery holder on before this capacitor, but never mind. You can just do the same with all the components. You just put on one pad a bit of solder, and so if we look at this view, the battery holder has this curvy bit goes at the bottom, that way the battery gets inserted that way. So these tabs just have to go on there. It's quite tight. Just melt it on. Don't hold it on too long just because it'll burn your fingers. Making sure that the other pad is aligned. See the other pad? Sitting on that. Now I have done this so it's sticking up a little bit. So we need to make sure it's flat. So to do that, we just melt this tab and just push it down a bit. Go. Solder this one on. Make sure you've got plenty of solder. It's nice and solid. Now, that is everything but the speaker. The speaker looks like this. and you see that white tab, that is the adhesive tape. Just peel that off and we stick that here. You see this circle with the little speaker symbol? Just stick that down like that with the two legs sticking out that way. Now it doesn't really matter which ones these go to, so I just put the red one at the top and the back at the bottom, but either way is fine. You can just use tweezers. First we need to get solder onto these pads at the end. And we use tweezers to get them to attach. You could trim them if you like. There we go. See that up close. Okay, that's all the components but the legs done. Oh, net and the eye. We'll leave this till last. Next we'll take the resistors and we're going to cut them off about 10mm above the top. Not all of them, we need to keep 4 of them. So cut 4 off, like that. Keep these for later, and we'll cut these about 10mm above the top. So you've got this. And take them all out the tape. And now we're going to solder the resistors to these pads here. All we need to do is get every single one of them, give them all a blob. Like so. If you turn this down a bit you can see better. Just solder these on. And then we'll do the same on the other side. There's 4 more pads on that side. Let's see this up close this time. There we go. Take your time, I'm rushing because the video only have a certain amount of time to do this. And what we're going to do next is join all these ends. These are going to be the ends of the legs. So, zoom in. At the moment it looks like a little flea, but we need to make these legs more leg-like. Also, each pair go together like this. If you look on the schematic, each leg is actually one of these. So if you saw those pads, that would be one pad, that would be the other pad, and this is the leg. So like this. That is one pad, that's the other one, and these will join like that. I'll show you in the microscope. Just tab at the end. And holding the resistors so you don't burn your hands. Join them together. Quick touch. Quick touch. Flip it over. Might look a bit confusing close up, but I'll show you afterwards. Of course, this isn't the only way you can do it. You can make your own mind up. Different ways of putting the legs together. You could solder them before putting them on the pads. Twist them together. That's another option. So, I'll show you here. There are 4 series of 2 resistors. Each pair of resistors is like this. Now the best bit. Well, actually no, first let's do the back legs before we bend these legs and shape them. To do that, we have the 2 pieces of wire. This. And we put them in the 2 remaining holes. These ones. This will hold those 2 extra PCBs. Now make sure they're not too, you leave enough wire on the opposite side, so you could put something in between, like I'm going to put this roll of solder. So there's enough slack underneath, so you see like there's more underneath than there would be if it was just flat on the table. I'll just solder them in. Hope SAR doesn't see me using a roll of solder like this. Now these will hold the 2 back legs. The opposite. Let me just trim these down. Take all the tabs off. Chucking them all over the room. Now, these have a side where there's pattern and 2 pads, and a side where there's pattern and 4 pads. These 4 pads should go on the inside. So, like when you're looking at it, these are on the outside. they're opposites of each other, so the Conehead text, for example, should go on the inside. So these both would be on the outside, and these would be on the inside. So for this, I want the straight edge to be like that. Put the wires in. So you see how it's on? Push it down until it touches the battery holder. See how the pads are on the inside and the pattern's on the outside, and that's straight. Just solder that. Cut those off. And then on this side, we'll do the same. Except there's nothing to stop it on this side, so I just do it down until it's just about the same as the other side. It's a bit like cordwood, this. Then there should be enough pressure to hold it, and you just tab it on. Then we need our 4 remaining resistors. Don't have to trim these down at all. These go on these pads here. We'll do the same as before. Where we just tab the wires on. Do the other side. Then we join the ends. And that should be it, except the last thing, 2 things. One, we need to bend these legs. I bend them outwards, in like that, out like that. Outwards, in like that, out like that. Outwards, in like that, little foot at the end. You can be more careful than me. You could do them together, for example. See how they're little inset legs now? And we just put on in an antenna. And this, see there's 3 holes left at the head. These 2 inner ones, smaller ones, are for the phototransistor, and that's for the antenna. We'll stick the wire in there. Now all that's left is the photo transistor. So if you look on the component side of the board, you'll see that there is a short line and a long line. The short line corresponds to the short leg on the photo transistor. That should go in on the decorative side, because that's the eye. It's also the square pad is the long leg, and the circle pad is the short leg. So put that in. I'm not going to show you this, just for speed. It's just a standard through hole component. And that should be it. Now for the painful moment of whether it works or not. Put the battery in. And the switch is slightly awkwardly under the leg. Just need to turn that on. And it works. See, it's responding to the light on the microscope. And that's it. Let me know if you have any further questions. If you're a member, you can just ask on the Slack group. Watch out, Monday or Tuesday I'll be doing a technical analysis of this circuit, show you more about it, and we will also be releasing better documents on how to assemble it when we release the website, which should be next week too. So hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.